Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence third Thursday call. I'm Noel Marshall.
And I'm Bob Warner.
And together we call ourselves LightPartners. And I forgot to put in the date. Today is May 21st, 2020. And we have a very special guest and friend and someone I love very much who I've been trying to get on this call for quite a while. She's a little shy of this camera and this Zoom thing. So it's taken a lot to get.
So many.
So we're excited to have Jane here. But before we start in with Bob, would like to just tell everyone a little bit more about the Co-Creators Convergence. And we'd like to make a few announcements. And then we're going to turn it over to our beloved Jane, who is going to bring us in with the prayer for humanity, which is one of my favorite prayers from White Eagle. And then we'll be off and running for the next 90 minutes.
Yeah, wonderful. And welcome, Marcia from Central Florida. Good to have you with us. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Co-Creators Convergence is a heart resonance community, unity, of uniquely gifted souls dedicated to embodying and amplifying our collective consciousness, thereby co-creating a world that works for everyone. We do this with great love, compassion, and joy, honoring all realms of creation to accelerate the awakening of humanity. And there's 4 different ways you can be connected to this community. Those of you that are new to us this evening, we welcome you for the evening, and we welcome you into this community forever. There are 3 other ways besides our third Thursday of the month call. The third Thursday call is recorded and has been for the last 6 years. So the second way to be in connection with us is via our website, co-creatorsconvergence.com. All of the calls going back 6 years, even back into the time when they were just audio calls, not video calls, are all there. And we've had such amazing, amazing people be a part of this on a monthly basis. The third way is we have a very active Facebook page, and we invite you, if you're on Facebook, to join the Facebook page. It's a wonderful place where we find our community 24 hours a day and are able to support one another in times of need and in times of joy and celebration. And lastly, for the last 7 years, we have gathered in circle in person for Co-Creators Convergence Live in Loveland, Colorado at the Sunrise Ranch Intentional Spiritual Community and Retreat Center. And we typically have 35 to 40 people. We sit in circle. It is a amazing, amazing time. A few of the people that are on the call here tonight have been to the Convergence 1 or multiple times. Oh, Kathy's here. Somebody's been here multiple times. And so this year, our event was scheduled for June 3rd, but the Great Disruption suggested that we should have it at a different time. So it is now scheduled for September 9 through September 13th at Sunrise Ranch. Noel, anything else about any of that?
No, I think you did an excellent job as always, Bob. And what I want to do now is just tell you a little bit about Jane Sorbi. And, you know, we sent ahead her bio, and she's been at the White Eagle Lodge and St. John's Retreat Center in Montgomery, Texas, and she's been the lodge mother since 2005. But she has been a I don't know if you would say devotee or practice of White Eagle for over 40 years. And Bob and I originally met Jane in 2012. We were traveling around the country in our RV. We were on a 48-state tour. We were talking about conscious evolution. And we were students of Barbara Marx Hubbard at the time. And we were doing presentations showing Barbara's movie. And we went to this One Unity Church, and we gave a presentation there, and someone came up to us afterwards and they said, you know, you should talk to those people up there at White Eagle Lodge, because they kind of like sound like your kind of people. And they also told us, well, the thing is, they're British and they're serious. So at that invitation, we said, possibly refuse. So we figured out where Montgomery, Texas was, and went up there and visited with Jane. And Jane was the most welcoming. She fixed us tea. She sat and talked with us. And as I came to learn, it was kind of like I was, preaching to the preacher. We got to visit she gave us a tour of the lovely facilities, a retreat center there, the Temple of the Golden Rose, where they do meditation and healing twice a day. And we just fell in love with Jane and everything we learned about White Eagle. And we've been going back every year since. In fact, we just returned there from a 5-month stay. When was that? That was in March, middle of March. So we have learned so much from Jane. And one thing we've learned about Jane is that she needs a little push to get into the media and to get on Facebook and to get out there. So we've actually done a few, you may have seen some of the recordings we've done with Jane in the library doing some readings. If not, Jane, you shouldn't have hid them. They're very lovely. And so after a lot of coaxing, I asked her if she would come on and be our guest on the Co-Creators, because there are so many that want to learn more about White Eagle. There's so many that when I explain to them about, you remember that book, The Quiet Mind? And they go like, oh yeah, I love that book. And I said, well, that's White Eagle, but that's like only a smidgen of the information and the teachings that White Eagle brought forward, and that the White Eagle community keeps alive on this planet. So without any further ado, I am going to turn this over to you, dear Jane. And we're going to have, Jane is going to bring us in with a beautiful prayer. And then for about a half hour, she's going to share wisdom. I've asked her to give people background about White Eagle, also about what's going on in Montgomery, and also what White Eagle, White Eagle had so many messages for this time. And so I'm sure that you would want to know about the White Eagle wisdom and I'm not going to say prophecy, but the teachings that pertain to this very critical time in our evolution. So with that, Jane, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Everybody should know that actually Bob and Noel are incredible workers. They stayed with us down in Meadowview Cottage, which is a very nice way of saying an old trailer. And they power washed and cleaned and polished and dug and did an amazing job. So we thank you so much. We really do. One of the things, I'd like to thank you also for giving us a push here. Although it seems that the Zoom calls have exploded everywhere. Even the convent that I used to attend, the school, is going to have a Zoom call. So we haven't seen each other since we were about 16. So that should be a very interesting call. None of us will recognize one another. Anyway, let's come together. We're all over the country. And one of the things that we need so much at this time is to come to a place of peace. To settle all the busyness, not only of our earthly selves, but of the tremendous amount of thought forms, shall we call it, that are spinning around in the world at the moment. There is such a heaviness and there's so much fear. And one of the things we can do as a group and as a family is to not only bring ourselves into a quiet space, but also radiate that quiet out to everyone else. And this is how we're going to move forward, not only individually, but also our nation and indeed the world, because we've been brought into, haven't we, really a world initiation, a time to change. So maybe we could just for a moment just close our eyes. Imagine somewhere really beautiful, perhaps a garden, perhaps a wonderful forest, the sound of bird calls, a quiet stillness, and the magic that only the natural world can bring to us, a freedom of mind and heart. we're drawn to a little circle, really in the middle of this forest in the woods. A lovely meadow lit by the sun. And so we can take a seat, perhaps against a great tree, and just center ourselves. Become very still. As we remember before God the great need of all humankind, and that we may pray to God. Let us make quiet the busy mind of every day as we open our hearts to the Father, Mother, God, and to Christ the Son, to the Holy Trinity of wisdom, love, and power. In the holy name of Christ, by the Christ light in our hearts, we call upon the great angels of Christ. We feel their presence and their power. And we attune ourselves to the prayers of all men and women of good will. And being thus prepared and ready before God, with all the will of our minds, with all the love of our deepest hearts, we send forth the light to the world. And hold our beautiful planet in the healing light of the Christ star, holding within this healing ray the soil, the waters of the earth and the air, and all of nature. And let us now hold in the heart of this star of Christ the soul of the Americas, the soul of all the people of the Americas. May the light of the Christ shine through the hearts and the minds of all the people of the Americas, to bring healing to mankind and a deep reverence for all of life. So now in the silence, let us just hold anyone known to us personally who may be in need of help or healing, and just see them perfect in this beautiful healing light. Just a moment of quiet. And we thank you, Lord, for your presence and the blessing of your healing grace upon these, your family. Amen. Now, just taking that feeling of this wonderful forest meadow that we have gathered, bring that quietness back wherever we may be, knowing that with a strong, quiet, steady spiritual center, we can move through anything that life brings to us. And for this we give thanks. Well, I know many of you are part of our lodge family already, and those who are not, it's those particularly that we would speak to. I suppose through many lifetimes, we've all been drawn to some sort of a connection, a spiritual connection. And so lifetime after lifetime, we'll find fellow travelers and we find a home. And I suppose above all things, the lodge seeks to be a home of the spirit. Somewhere where it doesn't matter where you come from, what your personal beliefs are, but there is a thread of truth that is going to run through all spiritual teaching. And I suppose we would say, as our teacher says, the Lodge holds a facet of this truth teaching. And if we feel that it resonates with us, then we will come together. My journey this lifetime has been drawn to the White Eagle Lodge. My mother was a member, my father perhaps a rather reluctant member, but anyway, that's how I came in touch with it all. And for many years it was part of our growing up in a sort of metaphysical household. And I didn't actually become involved until the early 70s when I was in this country. And suddenly I knew that I needed to become more active. And so that's how it all began. Many of us were in our sort of 30s and 20s and 30s at that time. We're all aging now, but hopefully more productive than we were then. The White Eagle teaches a universal spiritual path of brotherhood. If you can take yourselves back now to the late 1800s, and there was a little girl called Grace who was one of 9 children. And at 7 years old, her mother died. She couldn't understand why everybody was clothed in black with veils over their faces. This child was fully clairaudient and clairvoyant, and she could see the presence of her mother. In fact, one of the lovely stories is that as a little girl by the fireside, she would climb into her mother's lap in a rocking chair next to the fire, and no one else could see her, but she was comforted. She knew her mother had gone on to another life. So it was this little girl, Grace, unpretentious and one of this huge family, proceeded in her life. At 13, she was already being called upon to give readings, to give comfort to people who had lost family members, especially children. She had this wonderful compassion and understanding and absolute clarity. So life went on. She traveled, she became a minister in the spiritualist church, and here she, I suppose you'd say, spoke to many churches. She traveled around England, she went abroad, and was much in demand until suddenly she realized that when people were asking her questions, this was all about them. It was a very small but very useful work, and she knew that what she had to do is to bring a spiritual understanding to a much wider group in the world. She traveled to the Pyrenees, specifically to Mount Laudat in the early 1930s. And she was told clairvoyantly that she would find a treasure there. And I suppose, like all humans, she thought, well, maybe this is a physical treasure. But what she actually discovered is, by an amazing incident, she beheld what she called the shining presence. And it was this presence that brought to her an understanding of her future work and of a link with one we know as St. John. Now, to many who are not perhaps familiar with the Lodge, the White Eagle is actually the mystical symbol of St. John, the beloved of Jesus. It is also a symbol of the New Age, of the Aquarian Age. So even though so much of these teachings came through one whom we know as White Eagle, one of the most important things is to remember that it's not about personality. Truth teachings have flowed through many great teachers all over the world since life began on this planet. And one of the difficulties that has beset, I think, formal religions is that the personality has perhaps what the word is, it's taken over the actual teachings, because it's the teachings that are important, never the personality. So it was that through years, right through to the mid-70s, Grace Cook, as she became, brought through this, she was the medium, brought through the most incredible volume of teachings. There are literally thousands of teachings, which have found their way into books. They found their way into what we call the inner teachings, which are available on the internet, and work that is truly profound. No one ever professes that these teachings are new. The wonderful thing about truth is it is ever, ever constant. It doesn't change, and its basis will always be to love one another. Probably the hardest thing we have to do, isn't it? Loving one another. Not the people to whom we are drawn, but it is those souls to whom we are not drawn. That through advice and through awareness, perhaps we can see the light within them. And we know that it's that light that unites all of us together. All of us are part of this wonderful family of humanity. And we just have to remember, especially in this time that we're all going through at the moment, there is reason behind it. Now, there is something that, just briefly, I'd like to read. If we move into the understanding of what is happening now. White Eagle said in the 1950s, the time is short. And when we tell you that the time is short, we do so because we know there is a crisis coming to humanity as a whole, to the world. So much depends upon the quality of consciousness of you, on the quality of consciousness of the whole humanity. We are about to be set a very stiff examination, and you've been called, not through the years of fire, which was the world wars, but through years of initiation into a higher consciousness, into deeper comprehension of cosmic truth. So this is telling us that what has happened in the world is certainly not by accident. I'm sure, like you, we have received countless emails, whether you're looking at so-called conspiracy theories or different opinions, all of which in some sense are probably very valid. It doesn't alter the situation that we all find ourselves in at this moment. If we have a strong spiritual center, we will come through this very easily. The most difficult thing, certainly to our mind, is that because there's so much fear and so much lack of understanding, so much misinformation, so much restriction, that people are very afraid, not only for their personal health, but also for the world at large. Far more importantly, for economics. All the thousands of little businesses and individuals who suddenly find themselves maybe unable to support a family. So one of the things that I know any spiritual organization is designed to do is to focus on the light, to bring the light not only to the whole planet, but to all the millions of individuals who are impacted, who perhaps don't have the inner understanding that you and I might have of why this is happening. You know, we as humanity are very slow learners. Sometimes we read something, we need to be knocked over the head, and I have a feeling that this is one of those times. Because what is one of the things that is happening? There's nothing we can do outside to solve this. What we can do is look within, to go into our innermost heart and say, all right, what is it that I can learn from this? How may I grow individually from it? What is it bringing up in my life? It's very difficult, isn't it, to have steady emotions when so many are impacted and there is so much distress. It's funny, One of my very dear friends in England is actually just recovering from the coronavirus. And what he said that's so interesting is he said there is something, and this is a deeply spiritual person, he said it is not just the physicality of what one moves through. He said there is a real sense of fear that seems to go through one's body. And he's looked and looked at this and worked with it, and he's coming out, but he said it is not something that is usual in any way. It's something we have to look at as a huge journey for us all, a huge journey. So we'll say, what can we do? If we haven't got a spiritual practice, then we need to make one. We need to find time every day to go into the silence. And it doesn't matter if your mind keeps wandering. It means you've taken a few moments out of your daily life to be still. Just keep focusing on the heart, on all that is good and beautiful and gentle. Give thanks. I think most of us probably have a roof over our head. We have enough food to eat. We're not in some great camp. We can talk on the phone, we can email, and we can Zoom. It's so important for us as individuals to radiate the light, to radiate some sense of peace and quiet in a world that really doesn't know what's happening. It's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it, that one cannot even conceive of anything that would be global, that would literally stop the world. I made a couple of notes thinking about where this could bring us. One of the most important things, I think, is we have discovered a communication. Most of us wouldn't have touched Zoom years ago. The internet was quite enough. We found that all over the world, people are coming together and finding, amazingly, that even in a setting like this, there is this wonderful sense of community and a spiritual contact. And yet, what is that saying to us? It's actually saying that the link that we feel with one another is not physical. Because by this so-called pandemic, it has removed the physical. So it's asking us at a deep level to contact each other at a heart level, at an etheric level, at a level beyond the physical. Maybe it'll help us look much deeper. And when, in months or years or whenever, life returns to some different normal, we will be equipped with a deeper spiritual outlook and sense. Nothing happens by accident. Nothing happens by chance. This is by design. It doesn't mean to say that this isn't the dark side working, but it also means it's our job to balance this, to bring some sense of balance to what is happening. Most of all, to be calm. And that's difficult to do when we see some of the absurdities that are happening. But we also have to respect each one's fears, don't we? Respect each one's understanding. One of the things that will help us is also a sense of detachment from the mass energy or the mass fear. And detachment doesn't mean that we are cold and uncaring. Detachment really, to me, is rather like dispassion, which is a compassion, but not becoming emotionally involved. It's an observation and a kindness that we can radiate, not only individually, but as groups all over the world, and help lift and move ourselves forward. I think this that we're going through at the moment will last as long as we allow it to. Are we going to sit by and say, okay, I can't do anything. Let's wait until we don't have to wear masks. Let's wait until it all goes. I think we're each responsible for how it moves through. Is it going to be something that we just observe, or are we going to actually work together as a community? And that community doesn't mean we have to be together physically. It's a community that is drawn together by its heart love and by its strength and by all that unites us as a human family. So those are my initial thoughts. I did come across something, as one always does in White Eagle teaching, that is really sums it all up. And he says, we would have you think of life as one great experience in which even disharmony and suffering have their place. Vibrations playing upon the earth and upon the human soul have one divine purpose. There is no such thing as chaos in the universe. The law is exact and perfect, and all works together for good. The man or woman who will receive the greatest good must learn to accept all that comes with thanksgiving and joyfulness, and the deeper and more shattering the experience, the grander the ultimate reward. You are privileged, all of you, to be living in these days. These are days of the Great Awakening, great spiritual force and power. Beautifully put as always.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're just take a moment here. We are having a little trouble with static. Now, is someone has suggested that maybe you could turn off your mic and just use your computer? I don't know. Are you using a mic?
External mic?
External mic at all, Jane?
No, and it's perfectly silent here. I've got a mic within the video. I will turn this off just in case it might be trying to.
There's been some little staticky.
Does that make any difference?
No, it's still there.
Still there?
I can't hear you though now.
I'll turn it on.
Put that back.
I'm going to have to turn you on again.
Okay.
Turn you
Well,
on.
thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think we
Yep.
just have some other realms eavesdropping on us here
That's
tonight.
right.
Is the best way I could describe it.
Yes. Who else is hearing that?
About everyone.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
Yeah.
It isn't too, we don't, it isn't, we can
Yeah.
hear you perfectly fine with a little bit of rattle in the background. Some other-
yes. Yes, I don't know what that is. Did it go when I turned off my?
No.
No. So it's something else.
Jane, that was beautiful, everything you shared. I'm sorry we had to have a little microphone disruption there. It goes along with the great disruption happening on this, with the Great Awakening. Now it's been reframed. It's the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
Someone else said that they didn't have any problem at all. So I don't know, I can't speak to that. Jane, you introduced me to the Joseph Communications, which you say, which is also through the transmedia Michael Rachia. And in that it's, and you told me about the great parallel between the White Eagle and those teachings. Does White Eagle talk about this having happened to humanity before? Is this the first time that we've gone through this Great Awakening, or have there been other times that we've gone through and maybe didn't make it? Or?
Definitely other times. Definitely other times. I think since the beginning of time, we've spent our lives going through crescendos, and then, of course, the power element of the little person takes over, and the whole thread of what we're supposed to be doing here on earth, growing in the Christ spirit, is overtaken, and then civilizations have to go down. To me, this is a chance that we have not to do this again. Not to do it again. So that takes in two elements. It means we listen, we observe, but we don't lie down.
Mhm.
How much intrinsic freedom over the future is going to be removed from humanity? So every time we have, say, an initiation, it's an opportunity to look at what's happening. So there are many ways of looking at that.
Wonderful.
Yep.
For some of our folks that are relatively new to White Eagle, could you tell me more about the ministry, you know, the healing and the other things? And if I said, I want to join White Eagle.
You already did. Yes, I think through any, you can have a beautiful truths laid out, but how are you going to implement them? How are you going to? It's through, I hate to use the word, but the word spiritual discipline. We initially, when we first began, were asked to concentrate to send out the light at the hours of 3, 6, 9, and 12. Actually, if you can remember all the time, you'll be doing much better. But also to join in healing, which is prayer groups through color, vibration. We have about 250 individuals, and then their groups to get together. But of course, at this time, so many group work is being done over Zoom or just quietly having a time to link in together. But yes, it's setting a spiritual discipline, because then we start giving back. And as we know, the great law, as you give, so you receive. Mm-hmm. So it's about doing something. Then there is a core activity within the center of the lodge, which is a life dedication. We call it the Brotherhood. It is linking with the Great Brotherhood, who work with the Earth planets, our solar system, and indeed the universe. And so there is work, prayer work there. So there's lots to be done. Healing, meditation, primarily just to quiet us all down and to get to a point where there can be some union with God, which is what it's all about, isn't it? It's anybody who's interested in any way. We have things we can send both electronically and over the mail.
Great. And Bob was just mentioning, why is White Eagle involved? I think you have your own astrology school.
We do indeed, because when man knows himself, you know God in the universe. Self-understanding, because astrology is not designed, true astrology, or as it used to be called, astronomy, is about the influences that affect us as humans. It's not about saying you're going to meet a tall, dark stranger on Wednesday. And this is the trouble with what's happened to a beautiful science. It's been trivialized into prediction. And as White Eagle says, this is not about prediction. This is about understanding we've all come into life with a little chart or a map, haven't we? When we were born, what sign might be rising, where our moon is, and those will influence us. Now, it's our job to work with those influences, not to say, oh, I've got so-and-so in this planet, and therefore I have a terrible temper. Not going to work. No excuse. Darn it. So it's looking at the influences, the vibrations, which are so beautiful, and we have the opportunity of learning how to use them or how to work with them. And it can be hard, but once we've got an understanding of what those influences are, us individually, then we can begin to look at, okay, I'm reacting to this. Why? Mm-hmm. So it's very helpful.
Very good. Go ahead, Bob, did you have a question?
I have a question, and then we'd really like to open it up so we could have dialogue with everyone. I'm thinking about the concept of time. And so I want to hear about that. I was on a call last night. We were on a call last night with all the organizers of Unity Earth and the World Unity Week that's coming up in about a month. And number of people on the call were folks that we traveled to the Middle East with in February for the Holy Land Living Waters delegation. And we were reminded that 4 months from today will be International Day of Peace, UN's designation of International Day of Peace. And it was 4 months ago that we stepped off the airplane, Noel and I did, in the Middle East, where we hugged people, which we don't do today, and where we said—
Some of us do.
Some of us do. And we sat at the same dinner table with folks, and we went to restaurants with folks in Amman and Petra and other places in Jordan and throughout the Middle East. And the point was made that look how much our world, our 3D world, has changed in 4 months. And you can look at that through political, economic, environmental, spiritual, all these different ways you can look at how much this world has changed. And then say, so how could we possibly know what the world will be like 4 months from now? And so it just reminded me to ask you the question about, from White Eagle's teachings, what is said about time that we can, that's of value to us during—
Well, he says time is impossible to predict because in the spiritual world there is no time. So if we take, in our understanding, maybe 3 lifetimes to understand a particular something, in the spiritual world it doesn't matter. It's the learning. It's, if we get very caught up on this earth about time, when is this all going to end? It's not going to actually end. It's going to slip into something else.
Right.
It's going to slip into a deeper understanding. It's not going to be, and it isn't comfortable. We're very lucky here in Texas. We honestly haven't noticed too much difference, except we obviously honor the distancing and various other things. But as going back to your understanding of time, it's very disconcerting for us as humans who have calendars for everything, and time frames and beginnings and endings and appointments. But I think we have to let go of that understanding and say, okay, what do we need to do to speed this along? This is about world evolution, the human soul. And we always know the solution. It's in those 3 words: love one another.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to get on with it. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while. Yeah.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm also going to ask people, Marcia says, now, that's the only time.
That's exactly right. And one thing that's so important, one thing that White Eagle says about now, it is only in the moment of now that we are aware of Christ consciousness. It's not in the past, it's not in the future. It's actually at the center when we lean in. So most valuable, thank you, Marcia. Mm-hmm. Most important, yes. We don't get too caught up.
In the spiritual language or lingo that goes around, they use the word ascension. And does White Eagle ever use the term ascension or talk about different dimensions that, you know, we're going to go from 3 to 4 to 5D, sort of things like that?
That would also be time frame, which he wouldn't touch. But certainly dimensions indeed, because dimensions are going to be a finer and finer level, aren't they, of consciousness. And yes, he says we work on the 5th dimension. So we, meaning he and that, shall we say, master level, work on the 5th dimension. So I understand that actually all dimensions are available to us, assuming we have refined ourselves to reach them. It isn't like we're going to have a layer, like a glass ceiling, and poof, we've just punched through the 5th dimension. No, by the love, by the fineness of our own vibration, we may experience a higher and higher vibration. So people I know attribute certain ages to certain vibrations. And I think obviously when one reaches the next golden age, that will be a much finer dimension. But I wouldn't put a number on it.
Alrighty, we're going to open it up. If anyone would like to make a comment or talk to Jane, give me a wave or put something in the chat and we'll either relay it to her or I'll call on you. So if anyone has any.
Or just flail around on the screen if you have video, we could see that.
I think we can see most people. So any, okay. Kathy Mason.
I just want to share that I have this
Oh,
book, and it's a little dusty, but I do have it. So, so I guess I was definitely drawn to the frequency of this.
yes, and I love that book. It's no longer in print as such.
It's called Wisdom
From White Eagle. It's lovely. Yes, it's lovely. Yes.
Okay.
And I like the way you use the word frequency as well, because that's what it is. We're drawn to a level that we feel at home. Yeah.
and Christ light. Yep.
So Kathy, I think you should just open randomly to a page and read us a paragraph of wisdom from White Eagle. See what the.
Well, one of the things is on the back cover, it shows all the other books. And when you said something about Ascension, it says these other books, these other teachings are The Path of the Soul, Spiritual Unfoldment 1, Spiritual Unfoldment 2, The Quiet Mind, and Prayer in the New Age. So I thought that sounds like Ascension, the same terminology for Ascension.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who else like to chat? Jump in.
Okay, Patrice, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, so Jane.
I'm trying to find you, Patrice.
You're trying to find me?
There you are. There you are.
Hi. So how, with this whole event that's happening, this whole global, debacle madness that's going on, like I'm feeling a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of shock and disbelief as to how it's being handled and what's going on, and just all kinds of things are coming up for me around it. But I guess I just, on a spiritual level, we're not supposed to really feel anger and rage, and so I keep trying to want to lift it up into the light and know that God's in control and this and that. But I feel so as each day unfolds, I'm getting more and more upset by what I see happening, and just kind of wanted to know, how do you suggest dealing with anger and rage?
Well, I also think that what we're seeing in this whole episode is we're seeing also people who are enjoying the power to order vast crowds of people to do certain things. So there's this balance between the two as well, which could evoke, how do we stop anger? I think the only antidote to anger is to realize that this is a fellow soul on the path who is learning their own lessons. And that's the only way we can really look at it. Yes, looking at the whole thing that varies so much in every country. And I know, Patrice, you're in California, which has been one of the most strict states. And I know, Philip, you're from California, and Elizabeth, who else have we got? I don't know how, maybe to have, Suzanne, maybe to have your thoughts about how you've felt about in this particular state. Have you felt things have been a little over the top, or anybody want to say it?
I'm trying to figure out where my video went, because all of a sudden I can't see myself, but I'm trying to, can you see me?
I've just got your name now.
Yeah, it says the host stopped your video. So I'm trying to come back on, but oh, okay, here, hold on. I'm getting an invitation to start my video. Okay.
There you go.
Don't get angry. Don't get angry.
Okay, no, I won't get angry. Okay, so I'm sorry, now I forgot what your question was.
Well, it's trying to look at those individuals who are obviously got their own life lesson, and maybe control is one of them. We all like to have some sense of control of, and maybe some just feel this is the only way by separating people. But you have to look back into countries like, for instance, Sweden, who've done nothing like the rest of the world has done, and really the results are not much different. So you look at the character of a nation, and we can never, ever judge the motives of someone else. It's a very hard thing. I think it's hard not to, in your case. By the way, I'll just put a plug in for Patrice. She's a wonderful author of a very best-selling book called The Invisible String.
Oh.
And several other books are all part of that. And you're a freedom-loving person. I think it's very difficult to go through.
Yeah.
This, so.
Yeah, it's been brutal. And just seeing well, you know, everyone, we're all going through it. But just seeing how the collateral damage from all this as each day that remains locked down, it's just, all of it is so unnatural to, you know, anything that says don't be close to your brother and sister beings, to me, there's a problem there, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Anyway.
Philip, I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on it, being fellow Californian, LA area.
Philip, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Unmute yourself, Philip. Yeah. I'm not
In
sure.
the bottom left-hand corner.
I don't see him.
He's at the top here.
Right there.
Where?
Right there.
Oh, I would love to
Okay.
hear what he's saying.
I'm going to try to unmute him. I want to unmute.
Try on the square.
Don't do it on the square.
You're on.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm on. Okay.
Sorry for that.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I thought that some restrictions were, you know, overboard, like having people wear masks outdoors when they're on a hiking trail and there's no one around. I think people they're more courteous with each other, and they're empathetic. So I see some good coming out of this. But I'm in a fortunate situation where I still have a full-time job, and I've not been affected all that much, although we did have a scare a few days ago when my father caught pneumonia, and we thought he might, have COVID and perish within a few days. And fortunately, he didn't have that. But yeah, I think good will come out of this, if people will learn to be more empathetic.
Thank you, Philip. Yeah. Mm.
Michelle, did you want to jump in here? No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you had your hand up. Sorry about that.
Suzanne?
Oh, hi. Yes, I'm from California too. And I find I think this is day 130. I find myself being in a 90-day spiritual retreat because I've been meditating for over 45 years. And I look forward to the more discipline and the patterns that I can meditate and pray for people that I didn't know before in Facebook. And so being part of humanity, everybody's problem is part of humanity. So when we pray for the whole, it really helps the uplift the group energy consciousness. So I look forward to having this crisis of opportunity to have the time to do this, whereas if we were back in our everyday life and affairs, we wouldn't have this opportunity. So the universe has forced us to be in, I call it isolated unity, to communicate with each other in different ways than we did before. Families are having dinners together now, and we're getting in touch with old friends that we haven't heard from, and we're reaching out for those people that live alone. And I find it more of a brotherhood than anything else. So as long as we learn our lessons, I don't think we're going to learn them quickly, but when we stay up in the focused consciousness and alignment, instead of getting down to the solar plex energy and being upset and angry, we can uplift our consciousness and think logically and rationally, and don't get caught up in the pandemic.
Yes, it's a lovely way of looking at things. It is a step towards brotherhood, but we have to see beyond the physical, don't we?
Jane, we have a few comments come in. Paul says, my dreams are very vivid. And I have noticed on my Facebook feed other people saying things about their dreams. At this time, I don't know if anyone else on this call maybe give a head shake, whether they feel that their dreams are very vivid at this time. And would you have any comment on that?
Certainly my dreams have been, I remember every detail. So I'm not sure. I think when we go through something like this, the light that pours into the atmosphere is so strong. And if we can take time to assimilate this, I think everything becomes more acute. But yes, for me, it's been very, very detailed. And I never used to remember my dreams much. But this time I know them in detail.
Wow.
So that has been a change. Interesting, Paul. Yes, they are.
I say I've been having dreams that we're getting a dog again.
No,
And,
no, you haven't. No, you haven't. My side of the bed hasn't been having that dream.
I've also had that there's this woman that I need to call that she's been in my dream 2 nights in a row. She's a dear friend. And it's just like, I guess I'm supposed to be checking in on her, and I'll do it after we get off this call.
I too.
I'm just looking at that. There was Kari.
Yes.
Is this a pandemic related to an astrological alignment and or karmic moment for the planet? I'm not an astrologer, but we do know that, of course, what is it? Nancy Dorsey, she probably know, that Pluto in Capricorn, and it doesn't go out until about 2024. It's a time when we're absolutely held within the grip. So it's supposed to be 2024 that a new leader will come, perhaps the United States, and be a true leader for the light, beginning to bring us all up again.
Period.
So that's all I know. I'm not an astrologer. We need somebody who is perhaps to cast a much better light on this.
Okay. Jane, you had another question from David and Ashley, DNA. I would like to know how White Eagle classifies fear, either legitimate or not.
Classifies. I suppose when we're fearful, we're totally immersed in the lower self. Directly we rise into the heart. There can be no fear because there's absolute trust that we are loved. So perhaps it's that knowledge we are, when we do not accept how much we are loved, my goodness. And that we're looked after through every single stage. So fear is that doubt of how much we are loved in this whole universe. Everything is love. And it's our own little personal lack of trust, isn't it, that makes us fearful. As White Eagle says so often, all is ordered by divine law. And if we can remember this, then perhaps the anxiety and fear isn't quite so acute. I don't know whether that helps.
Okay. I'll wait for them. David, do you want to, or Ashley, do you want to say anything?
My main question was about trying to, I know that in myself I'm loved. I hold a very centered being of light, I'm finding now in this time, when I go into town, I am kind of overwhelmed with a lot more fear than I would normally encounter. And so maybe, I guess my question is I don't want to dismiss a lower vibrational person's fear. I wear my mask to protect them, and maybe I wear my mask mostly to help alleviate their fears. But I find myself still kind of immersed in other people's fear. So what would be a good way to avoid lowering yourself into their fear and raising yourself? I mean, I find myself just trying to be more of light, trying to be more positive. You can't smile at people anymore if you're wearing a mask, kind of thing. So my normal way of radiating my love out to people is not available to me. So I guess maybe that's where my question is how do I classify their fear?
Well, I suppose also because I've felt it so much the same. Just going to the grocery store, I come back feeling ill. And what we've entered is this huge mass, and white people calls it rather like a nasty grey, brown sludge of thought. And so it's very hard not to pick it up. So as best we can, we have a way of, and I'm sure you perhaps in your spiritual practice, we have a way of sealing or veiling the chakras simply with the cross of light encircled by light, particularly over the solar plexus. We can do it all the way down, and then literally see yourself in a sphere of light when you have to go into these places. But even though we are comparatively free with other parts of the country, it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. You've got people who are in the grocery stores, bless their hearts, checking out, and they're frightened, especially the older ones. So the whole thing is this, we're walking into that vibration. And yes, we can still love, but we really need to protect ourselves. And it's hard. It's hard, I know. I kept wondering a couple of times, what on earth is wrong with me? And then I suddenly realized we're walking into it. Yes. And the more congested the area and the more congested the place, the more difficult it is to be protected.
Thanks for jumping in, Ashley, and clarifying that. Jane, would you go back and review? Someone is asking, want to understand what you were saying about 2024, or what White Eagle is saying about 2024.
No, it wasn't White Eagle.
Okay.
This was several astrologers that I respect. No, it wasn't. It is. It's very easy to find out. I've got a lot about it. Is Nancy Dorsey still with us? I don't know whether she is.
Yes, I'm here.
Nancy, would you be able to give some thoughts on this?
I think it's Saturn and Pluto have been together, and Pluto is about transformation. It's your opportunity to get it right or start over at the worst level. Obviously, we're working for the higher level. Saturn is making sure that people get their lessons. So when you put the two together, we've been, from the spiritual side of it, we've been given a lot of teachings, but we haven't necessarily gotten the point. So it's a chance for everybody and every country, the whole world, to learn. And it'll be kind of like, if you look at it from all the teachings and all the other pieces and putting it all together, when they say it's the opportunity to move on to the golden age, how we move on, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of theories on that. Until we walk through it, we're not going to know. But I think it's a case of the timing of the planetary alignments, that energy is going to be there, focused on get this lesson, get it now. You have to go through change. And I think that's what it's about on the timing with the planets and the influences that are going on right now.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Very well put.
Wisdom from a hawk.
Yes. Nancy up in Dallas.
Yeah, I wanted
Right.
to throw one other thought out there, and this is along those things of, it's very easy concept, as in most spiritual things. The practical part is much, much more difficult, and that is that, like a lot of us that are into spiritual things, we pick up the feelings around us. I mean, it's part of why we're compassionate is because we can sense it. But if you're sending out the light, if you're constantly pulling in the light and sending it out, you're offering it to the people. They have a choice of taking it or not. So you're not forcing anything. But if you're sending that out constantly, you're not getting buried in their fear or anything else. And you're offering them a way to be lifted up, whether you can smile or not. That's good when you can do it. But the energy from your heart is really the most critical part. So if you're sending out that love all around you, then it's giving everybody else a chance to be lifted up, and it's helping keep you centered. And it gets to be a cycle that repeats, and it's easier so that it kind of breathe in, send out, and you keep it going. But is it easy to get there? No. Is it a goal? Absolutely.
And I think that also brings, Nancy, and I see some comments at the side, in the Bible, it's very clear, put on the whole armor of God. And what is armor? It is light, which is love. So I think it was LJ or certainly Elizabeth Preston just simply saying to have this light around us and to just as Nancy has said, to send out the light. It has its own protection because by light we're sending love, and by its very nature it's going to be protected. Not easy, but worth keeping on.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Ashley.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll call you right next, Flo, that when we were there and meditating at White Eagle Lodge in the beautiful environment with these light beings called Jane and Sylvia and others, after we finished, we always sealed our chakras. And you have a beautiful private little ceremony you do for yourself. And that's kind of interesting because other people say, no, you should never close your chakras.
Well, you're not closing, you're veiling. I think that's the important word. Not closing is just putting a veil of protection over it. There's a very good description. It's, when we are in a deep meditation, naturally, our chakras open. And there's the analogy of, it's like opening the windows in your house. But when you go out, you don't want a thief to come in, so you close the windows and maybe lock the door. So it's the same thing. If we stay open, we're going to feel an awful lot and be open to things that perhaps we wouldn't welcome. Hence fear and that sort of thing. So it's a very useful, since the beginning of the lodge, Grace taught through White Eagle the necessity of, if you go into deep meditation, just be wise before you leave your home or wherever you are, and veil each chakra before you leave.
So actually, before you go into Loveland, just close those chakras.
Not close,
Veil
the
them.
chakras.
Veil them, yes.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to go to Flo next. Flo, you can unmute yourself.
Got it?
I got it. Hello everybody. I just wanted to say, I live in a suburb right outside of Chicago. I live in Evanston, Illinois, and it's quite dense and highly populated. And so I have started right from the beginning when I would go into the grocery store, because that really seems to be a very vulnerable place. But rather than put myself in a bubble, I would fill myself with light so that light would keep anything bad from coming in, and I feel like that. And I also say to people, you can't see it, but I'm smiling at you. And I always tell the cashiers how happy I am and how grateful I am for them to be working, because these are people, like 40 years ago, I was a cashier in a grocery store. It's hard work anyway. And it's, they're out there, man. They're not doctors, but they're getting all of the you know, the stuff thrown at them, and people are who speak to them are on edge and everything. So I just try to send out as much love as I can, and I feel like that helps. It helps them, but it helps me too, because if I don't do that, if I'm on a day when I just feel like I don't know, for some reason I don't, I notice I come back and I'm just not feeling as well. So that's just a little thing of how I'm dealing with parts of this.
That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Thanks, Flo.
Radiating the light. That's what we need to be doing.
Okay, we had a few messages. One from, you might have mentioned LJ, our protective bubble of light surrounding our heart is protected to be compassionate to others' feelings without taking their feelings in. Amen.
Amen.
Well, Jay. And then Carrie, is it how you pronounce it? Kari.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Is the fear of the virus itself potentially making the pandemic stronger?
No question. No question.
Mm-hmm.
Our thought is the most powerful thing that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important to try and keep our thoughts as clear and loving as possible. Take them away from, don't listen to news. You know, I came across a reading from wartime within one of the old Lodge magazines. And there was, it simply said, don't listen to the media. Don't read all this awful information that's going on, because what it does is just make it stronger. Do you want to make the negative stronger, or do you want to bring light? It's a choice we have every day, I think, and it's very addictive. A lot of people look every day, oh, how many cases, how many this. They sort of have to feed this media frenzy. It's harmful. If we can possibly avoid it, it's a good thing. And then someone else will say, well, I need to know what's going on. Well, actually, none of it's going on. It's not real. What is real is the light. So you don't need to go there.
Well, it's an additional perspective about that is we have been watching a lot of, this is the time of year when the Food Revolution has its summit. And there's another whole series that's been on that just concluded today called Eat for Earth. And it's about healthy eating. It's about the earth. It's about the planet. It's about the soils. It's about the microbes in our body and bacteria and in the soil and that sort of thing. And a number of the lectures there don't, to this point about being in fear, have quite a spiritual view of the situation and saying the virus is a part of this planet's life. It is life. And it's a part of, which isn't to suggest we should be unthoughtful of the way we are around other people or about how we care for ourselves and our own body and our own family. But it's an acknowledgement at a spiritual level that says, this is, you know, if we hadn't been eating processed food for the last 4 decades and we'd been getting our hands in the dirt, like some of us on this screen did when we were younger, but we don't allow our grandkids or our kids to do that, we might be in a different place. And we can go to a different place going forward also, as in putting it in a different framework.
And White Eagle actually does address the whole situation with germs. He said, why are you afraid of germs? You have everything there around you. It's only if you are vulnerable and let it in. Of course, what does fear do? It makes you vulnerable.
Yeah.
Though it is awareness that you aren't going to have some germ zipping in to attack you. It's, are we vulnerable? Are we open to our fear? And, you know, you need a receptor in anything. It may be part of my life that I need this. But if we worry about it, then your whole life is spent worrying instead of just getting on with life. And knowing that we have an entrance gate and an exit gate, and we're going to be all right.
Okay, Jane,
Thank
we
you.
have a couple more. Thank you, Carrie, for that comment. And Patrice, she says she has a question about ETs. I'm feeling a lot of energy. The contact is coming very soon.
And then we'll call Marcia.
And then Marcia would like to make a comment. So I don't know if you want to address anything about ETs. Where does,
Well, I think there probably, you know, there are so many unseen already, and those perhaps even using a normal human body. I don't think it's anything unusual. And one of the things that is so strong in White Eagle's teaching is the affinity or the higher aspect of the Earth is Venus. And so often calls the Venusians our sister planet, and are very much concerned with our own well-being and progress. So one can, in meditation, have a lovely link there too, to bring in everybody in the universe is waiting to help us. We're just a slow lot.
We're a slow lot.
where does
We're a slow lot. It's all there. It's all there. So bring it in.
well, I'm going to turn it over to Marcia, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I wanted to say to Jane, I so appreciated what you said when you said that it's a privilege to be alive during this great time of awakening. And what a privilege it really is. And I want to share just this experience that I had just 2 days ago. The state of Florida is, you know, slowly opening. I think we're at 50% now open. And I haven't been to a sit-down restaurant. I hadn't been since, you know, the onset of the situation that we're in. And the other day, I was really excited about going. I was really excited about going to my first, you know, it was like exciting, you know, just to go to a restaurant. And so I walk into this restaurant, and I had my mask on, and I stood in front of one of the tables. And I got this really clear direction that this was not the place for me to be. And I believe that that's a part of what's happening to us. It's an awakening, a heightened awareness of, and what came to me, because we left that restaurant, I got just really clear, I don't want to be here. We went to another restaurant, and what my experience was just filled with joy. I mean, it was an amazing experience. And the reason, I believe, or a part of it, was that I felt so respected at this second restaurant. The staff was, you know, they had masks on, they had gloves on, they had cleaned the table in front of us before we sat down. So it was an awareness of, I guess, important for me to experience that sense of respect, and how much I appreciated that. Someone mentioned going to the store. I remember the first time I went to the store after the beginning of this thing, I had my mask on, went into the store, and at that time the employees didn't wear masks. But I remember standing there and crying because they were there serving me. And it was like this sense of respect for other people. So it's this heightened awakening, this heightened awareness of the things that are of such value to each other, the compassion. And I go back again to respect. So, and it really is a privilege to be alive right now.
Yes, we're the ones who can make the change and to recognize all the goodness in each other. Yes.
True.
Well, we have time for one more comment.
Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia. I'm glad, you know, you're taking care of yourself. We just love you so much. Precious to us. Sheila has a question about whether White Eagle describes where we are going as a planet from this time of crisis. I like that. Any? Get my crystal ball.
I need to know. What time?
Well, yes, I don't think the time is forthcoming, but I think where we are going, we are assured, we trust, and no, we don't hope, we know that the planet, he said, we will not go back again, that this time of coming to the next golden age, which we've still got just under another couple of thousand years to go, but it will not return back to its normal state. In other words, it's time for us to take our place in the solar system rather than the dark star that we will find that we are able to rise with it. But he also says those who are not able to rise will go to another planet already prepared for those who maybe need some, haven't quite made it this time. And he also says, as an amusing aside, and some of you may go down there and help.
Wow. That's an amazing.
So we have our work cut out for us.
I like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Jane, okay, I'm gonna just, I have one question and then we'll close, let you go and get some rest. I know you're working really hard there. I thought you were gonna have some time off, but doesn't seem that way. It seems like.
Hasn't happened yet.
No, not quite yet.
Behold the thought.
I do have a question. When I first met you, you told me something about there being a connection between White Eagle and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, huge, yes. Because if there's a book, it used to be called The Return of Arthur Conan Doyle. I think it's now called The Book of the Beyond. And this is about the tremendous influence he had, along with Grace Cook, in the formation of, this was after he had passed as well, after he had passed, the information that he brought back, because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was very much a spiritualist, and he discovered a lot of what he held to be true on Earth was actually not true. And so he wanted to bring back an understanding. It's a very interesting book, that Book of the Beyond, it's now called. It gives a lovely history of the lodge and that aspect. So yes, in fact, his birthday is tomorrow, May the 22nd.
Wow.
So then he communicated through Grace Cook?
Yes. You see, it was through, he passed and his wife came to Grace to make the leap. So much more than we can say now, but it's very interesting. Yes, certainly the powers that be came together to bring this into being.
So you can get like straightened out on the other side. They said, no, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, you've got it.
No, not at all. I think it's our own self-realization. I think we come to the point and we look and we say, oh, because we've been held in a particular personality for whatever it is we need to learn in this lifetime. And when that is able to gradually be released, perhaps we have wider vision. One hopes.
Okay.
One hopes.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I tell people that story, and sometimes I find it so hard to believe. I'm going like, maybe I'm not even telling that story right. I have to reread the book.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jane. And Bob, do you want to, I don't know if you want to say any final words here or gratitude to everyone.
This is, as it always is, this has been such a delightful evening and a double over exciting for us that there are so many folks with us this evening that have not until tonight been a part of the Co-Creators Convergence community, but you are now, and because here you are. And so we're just very, very delighted to have everyone join us. You were, again, you're welcome to check out the website and the Facebook page. I also want to underscore for those, you'll see a lot on our Facebook page in the coming weeks about this movement called Unity Earth's World Unity Week. This 20th through the 28th of June will be a special time of celebration around the world with musicians, indigenous wisdom, all kinds of different activities. There'll be an element that relates to planting of peace poles around the planet, elements of blessing the water, elements of International Yoga Day is during that week, and solstice is that week.
I think it's the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, the 20th anniversary of United Religions International.
Right.
There's going to be all kinds of things, and we want White Eagle Lodge to be a part of that.
Right.
Be one of the partners and bring some more visibility to these wonderful teachings that we find. Listen, folks, Jane has not even scratched the surface. When we go there and we have a morning meditation, they always pull out a reading from White Eagle. And I just come out blown away each time. And so there is, I put a website up here, whiteeagleteachings.org, where you can, they've cataloged everything, you can get everything, it's
Got
free.
word search.
And the teachings are just amazing. So I just want to say, we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, whiteeagleteachings.org, White Eagle with just one E in there, not two. And again, Jane, thank you so much for spending the evening.
Oh, thank you both. And thank you all the people who I haven't seen for ages, who
That's wonderful.
miss you. And it's, you know, who knows how long it'll be before we can open up again, but to retreats anyway. But we do our little Sunday services and our brotherhood and healing work. So yes, all working together wherever we are. That's the important thing. It doesn't matter if we're not together. We are together in spirit. So,
Yes,
Well,
thank
I've
you.
unmuted everyone. If you want to say good night to Jane, thank you so much for coming. And
Right, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. And
Jane. Good night, everyone.
I'm glad I joined you tonight. Thank you so much.
thank you,
You're
Bob.
thank you.
welcome.
Stay safe.
Jane, let everybody know we said hello.
Mhm. Oh, I will.